What's going on, you guys? So I wanted to cover a recent dev diary from Victoria 3. I know I've been all over the place with Victoria. I was meaning to kind of go over them, numerically, but yeah, just so much stuff going on. All right. I'm very interested in this because, well, this is like the best part of ending the war is the peace deal of getting what you want, right? Hello and welcome back to another Victoria 3 development diary. Last week we wrapped up the dev diaries on war, and now we'll be bringing both diplomacy and war to a close for the being that is by talking about appropriately enough how to negotiate an end to one of your wars. We're of course not done talking about warfare, and we'll return to the topic at a later point. But for now, let's talk peace. So let's say you launched that diplomatic play to get that Dutch colony you've been eyeing for years, thinking that you've had it in the bag, all the way up until the French decided to back them up, and you found yourself dragged into a bloody, costly conflict that you want nothing more than to get out of. What do? There's actually two different ways of making peace in Victoria 3, capitulating and negotiating peace. However, before we explain how these work, we need to explain a crucial mechanic to all forms of peacemaking: war support. War support is a measure of the political will in your country to continue fighting in a particular war, and goes from negative 100 to positive 100. Each country will start a war with a high degree of war support. Currently always 100, though we're considering having it start at different levels based on how politically unified your country is, which declines over time. The factors that govern how quickly war support drops include having your territory occupied by the enemy, pops dying and being wounded in battle and from attrition. That's one thing I love about Victoria is like populations are accounted for in the military. So if you send an army of 200,000, right, into a big war and you lose half of them, wherever that 100,000 was, right? Let's say they're from Buffalo and different parts of the country. Those population areas are going to feel it. They're going to be reduced in volume, in size, and I just find that really interesting because that affects the whole economy, which is why I love Victoria. Internal turmoil in your country, for example, because your economy is worsening due to the war, whether the enemy controls their war goals. Sam is in a bad way in this war, losing more than 11 war support every single week. Wow. Unless they can turn things around quickly, capitulation isn't far away. As with the previous war diaries, please note that any numbers, interfaces, tooltips are very much not final. Oof. Ouch. Because they, wow. I guess that's where that military strategy comes in. Got one shot, maybe two. When their war support hits negative 100, a country is forced to capitulate. A country that capitulates sees all war goals that are targeting them and gives up on all unpressed war goals they were still holding. It's also possible for most countries part of a war to choose to capitulate at any time, even right after the war has broken out. They will immediately let them exit the war at the same cost outlined above, but may also incur a diplomatic penalty if the country capitulates early, especially if they have nothing to lose by doing so, as it would be seen as a cowardly betrayal of your allies. War leaders are also able to capitulate, and this doesn't usually end the war, as they're only ceding war goals targeting themselves and their subjects, and a new war leader will be chosen to continue the fight on their side of the struggle. The only circumstance under which a capitulation will end the war is if there are no war goals left to fight over. Which always results in immediate end to hostilities. However, it is impossible to simply attack a faraway country and force them to cede you lands, distant lands, simply by waiting for their war support to take down by itself. This is because any country that has a war goal targeting which isn't considered to be controlled by the enemy and still retains control of its own capital cannot have its war support drop below zero. Interesting. For example, let's say that while playing Brazil, you attack Netherlands. That would be very weird. And demand they cede both Curaçao and Guyana. You easily occupy Guyana, but find that your navy's outmatched. You can't land armies to take Curaçao or Amsterdam. As a result, you will be unable to force the Netherlands to capitulate unless you actively choose to drop your war goal on Curaçao. Interesting. It's possible to capitulate anytime during a war, even when it just started and war support is at maximum. That's it's still possible. Definitely doesn't mean it's a good idea though. Interesting. Open Japanese market. Oh wow, check this out. So you can do like recognize Japanese, Portuguese war reparations. You can force the Japanese market to open. Wow. Interesting. So what then of negotiate peace? This is quite a bit more complex than capitulation and can involve a whole host of countries that are part of the war. When making peace, countries involved in a war are split into three different categories. War leaders. This is the main participant on each side. War leaders can propose peace deals and must ratify and propose peace from the other war leader in order for it to take effect. Negotiation. This is any country that either holds a war goal or has a war goal targeted them and who are not one of the war leaders. Negotiators must ratify any proposed deal from both enemy and their own side in order for it to take effect. Interesting. Very interesting. Non-negotiators. This is any country that doesn't fall into the above two categories. They don't play any active role in peace negotiations. Subjects whose overall is part of the war are also considered non-negotiators, as their overlord negotiates on their behalf. For a negotiated peace to happen, the war leader on either side must first construct and propose a peace deal out of the pressed war goals. Unlike in many of other grand strategy games, peace deals in Victoria 3 isn't necessarily just one side making demands. The war leader can propose a mixed peace deal, interesting, in which war goals are ceded from both sides. Once the war leader is satisfied with the deal they're proposing, they send it out to both sides of the wall for ratification. I like that. This rebellion against Britain has turned into something of a brush war between the great European powers, limiting fighting in the colonies between Britain and its enemy France. War support remains high, but if things take a bloodier turn, both sides may find their populations quickly growing weary of the fighting. Interesting. Oh, wow. That's interesting. So they're taking wounded into account. I don't believe they did that in Victoria 2 or 1. That's interesting. I wonder how that is going to play into other parts of the game. Interesting. That's right. In order to have your proposed peace deal take effect, you need not just the enemy war leader or even the enemy war leader and negotiator agree to it all. All negotiators on your side must agree as well. This means that while you can try to cut a deal with your Dutch enemy to give you everything you want from them in exchange for selling out your ally Prussia, the likely answer to that from Prussia is going to be firm and resounding no. At least so long as they aren't truly desperate for peace. However, if you're willing to be fair about the whole thing and gives up something of your own as well, they're going to be more receptive to your proposals. War support plays a key role in determining what kind of peace deals the AI will agree to, with both their own and the enemy's war support factoring in. Even if their war support has dropped into the negative, the AI isn't going to agree to a long list of demands. I always do that from a country that is themselves a few weeks away from capitulating. That's all for us today. Now that we talked about economy, politics, diplomacy, and war, join us again next week as we cover the topic that touches on all of them. Technology. Ooh. So this is really interesting. One, I really like that they're bringing in wounded here. That's very interesting. The other thing is, it feels more real, because think about World War One. There was so much haggling of you take this a lot. Well, if you take that, then I'm gonna take this. But if you're gonna take that, I want this. And you gotta it kind of goes into how in depth, how serious, how articulated, negotiating a deal comes. Because I'll be honest, I'm one of those people that where it was saying over here, they have negative, 20, I would be all right, I want everything, kind of thing. So, but this is really cool. I cannot wait to Victoria 3. Obviously, it's not coming out 2021. It's definitely a 2022, if not 2023 game. But I want them to take their time. If it's 2023, let it be 2023. Take your time. I don't mind waiting an extra year. The game has been announced. I can. We can wait for this incredible title, because we all been itching for a Victoria 3, and now it's coming. So awesome. All right, catch you guys in the next one. See you then.